Alrighty, good afternoon. Not afternoon. It's night out. Why am I saying that? um, Good evening, YouTube. This is Hajim Zero here, back with another quick movie review. I'm gonna try to make this one quick as possible because I've been procrastinating on it. Uh, this one, is somewhat one of my favorites because one of my favorite actors is in this movie, which is Kevin Costner. This is 13 Days. It's pretty much telling the story of the drama that ensued in 13 days with the Cuban Missile Crisis back in the early 1960s. Also, of course, Russia was involved too. I'm gonna touch more of it probably when we get to X-Men First Class. But I really like this movie. I first seen this when I was a kid. We were studying about it in middle school. And shout out to Mr. David Barragato. Hopefully he remembers me, but or if he sees this video because I really love history and I really enjoyed his class. And that's the first time I seen it was in his class. Only saw a few scenes though. We didn't see the whole thing. It was mainly the beginning and how we joked about you couldn't really walk up in the White House anymore. You had to have some kind of clearance because it was the 1960s. And besides Lincoln, of course, he was the second president I can think of that was assassinated. So of course their clearance must have been extra tight right after that. But Kevin Costner's in this, Dylan Baker, and a few more other actors off the top of my head. I can't really think of. Kevin Costner plays, I want to say, no, Dylan Baker was probably the Secretary of Defense. He was something majorly important. I could be wrong, but I know Kevin Costner's character, who's also based off of a real guy, he was really real close friends with the Kennedys, Bobby and John. And I'm drawing a real strong blank on what he did in the White House. But it was a very good story. Really, I think it really shined not really a light on the dire situation that our country had faced at that time, but really the decisions that Kennedy had to make. Because pretty much like Obama and any other young Democrat, they would try to punk. But I will say this: I think right after Kennedy had passed, that's when the Democratic Party had really started to slowly started to tank. It really, to be honest, it really started with Lyndon B. Johnson, and that's a whole other semi-s conversation because I got into it and not really get into it, but a little bit of a social debate about the black family dynamic, and Lyndon B. Johnson is kind of responsible a little bit for destroying it. You can call whatever you want about him signing the Civil Rights Act. It was really a political move. That's how I see it now. So again, we can have that whole debate about it, but besides that, I kind of didn't trust him because how quickly he became president right after that. And there's been many conspiracy theories stating that he was possibly behind the assassination in X, Y, and Z. But it was really showing the drama between the three men and what they had to face. I really felt sorry for the guy that Kevin Costner had played because apparently he fell into deep, great depression right after Kennedy. Actually, both Kennedys had got killed. And there's another movie about Robert Kennedy indirectly on the night that he had got assassinated. It had a bunch of stars in the movie. I can't remember the name of it. Shia LaBeouf was in it, Nick Cannon, Elijah Wood. It was a whole A-list of actors. I think Ashton Kutcher was in it. But it sucks because what's currently going on now here in the state of Georgia, Brian Kemp and Stacey Abrams, they're running for governor. Personally, I didn't vote for either of them. I voted for a progressive, and I will say I should have looked up who that progressive was before I voted for him. But that's just the thing with me. And I say this over and over again. a lot of people sacrificed for everybody to have an equal vote in this country, and it just sucks now because our world is completely different, and politics and money go hand in hand, and it sickens me to the deepest core of my root. There's a lot of real things that both candidates are offering as a safe space, but none of them are offering an equal solution. To be honest, and I even said this beforehand, even before I caught on that the donors were really the ones running the country when they're funding, the president's candidacy and all that they're really controlling them, because even Donald Trump, I kind of don't like him, but he had a little bit of points about what he said. And, he fooled a lot of people, because if you look at him in the beginning, he stated a lot of things that he was going to do, and then he completely turned around and said, hell no. You could say that socially, economically, whatever you want to call it, but it really didn't hit me until the Young Turks, they had said that this is a guy who went bankrupt so many times, had so many different lawsuits. So the good thing is that, I sat there and waited to see when he was going to slip up. And then when it kept happening and happening and happening, I was like, okay, this guy's a little bit out of his mind. There are Republicans, even in his own cabinet, that don't like his ass. There are some progressives who are super liberal, but at the same time, they ain't no punk. Even the Young Turks, they call out, the left and the right. It's mostly the right, but with the left, they should be pissed when they literally said that you are paid to lose, and which is technically true. To be real, the person to be in office I really wanted to vote for at this point was Bernie Sanders. I'll admit I did vote for Hillary because, she was a safe space from Trump's bullshit. But when I look back on some of her talking points a little bit and all that, I think what made her lose the election, well, besides her health potentially, was that she was shooting a middle finger to all the men, all the men's rights, or just men in general. I'm just gonna say this, I'm not a feminist. I never was. I really do believe that every person is treated equally. If you want me to treat you equally, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I have utter respect for people. It's just who I am. I hate these bullshit standards nowadays that they're saying that what men and women shouldn't do, even though that women want to be treated equally, and even with the whole racial thing, people want to be treated the same. But when a consequence comes down to it, some of y'all don't want to take the consequence. And even now that's mixedly vague. Like I say, the good thing is that I sit there and I watch all the evidence. I even hear all the evidence, and I just don't make a final decision. And the good thing, I'm glad that I don't do that anymore. A good example was the whole Starbucks story that happened recently, and how they never told people that, well, for number one, that boycott bullshit, it was bullshit. And I'm saying this because I worked in the restaurant industry for, a good amount of time. And when someone does something like that, the person needs to be fired, not this whole mandatory thing, because I really personally blame the employee a little bit. I don't know what the hell happened. I kind of do want to hear the employee side, but I do give credit to those two guys, because personally, I would have went on a crusade to make sure that woman had got exposed and fired. At that point, I wouldn't have been mad at the cops, because what they didn't tell you, the police eventually released those men when they realized it was some bullshit that these people were on. And then they were actually meeting up this dude for real estate. And, even after they had got arrested, they were stating, yeah, let's just give back $1 to push more entrepreneurial programs to get, the youth off the street and all that. So it just sucks that Kennedy was pretty much the official Democrat, that was really going to help the people. And then they were saying, if he would have been alive, well, I think if he would have been alive and he would have had a second, I don't know if he did have a second term, but he would have had a much bigger impact than any Democratic president. And, you know, his work would have been fully affected today. And they said, ironically, he even said that there's a plan to extort the American people or do something to the American people. And then a couple of days later, he gets shot. So it just sucks that in our country, doing the right thing is mostly viewed doing the wrong thing. And it blows. Even with the Democrats, they want to do a lot of good for people. And, you know, with the whole racism and immigration and then fucked up healthcare insurances, again, I get that, you know, I want that too. But the shitty part, there's only a few that really wants it. There's a couple that use that driving force of what Republicans are saying and be like, okay, let me just say this and attach people to get the vote. And 9 times out of 10, they won't do shit anyway. And I'm not just saying this about the Democrats, but the Republicans too. You know, some people who had voted for Trump, some of them are pissed now because he had cut some of their programs, and now, especially some of the disabled, and they're super utterly, you know, disappointed. But I was like, what do you expect? This guy, the only real truth I really believe that Trump has said was in that article like a couple of years ago where he said, if I was ever to run for president, I'll vote Republican because they're the easiest people to fool. And I don't know when that one has started, because there was a point where, at least in the 1700s and 1800s, you know, if you were Republican, you really stood for the country, you know. But at the time, it was a necessary evil we had to fight, and it was the British tyranny. And then later, with the stuff that was happening with World War II. So if you ever notice that the World War II was like the last official war that we had to fight, it wasn't about money or politics. It was literally like, if we lose this shit, someone's going to potentially in time take over our country. It was really good versus evil. And even with the Cuban Missile Crisis, if Kennedy didn't want to done what he did, we would have had World War III, mainly with the Russians. I don't think with the Cubans. You know, Russia's a big ass country, and then Cuba is just a small, pretty much island. So, you know, the only similarity, of course, are both communists, but look who has more people and more weapons and more artillery. So, you know, I'm trying to remember. I think they said that they were going to move some kind of weapons close to Turkey. It would have started another nuclear war. I think that was the nuclear World War III, and Kennedy had the blockade or something like that. But that's the credit I can give Kennedy. I think more White House officials from that time, and of course deeper detailed historians, they would possibly say, yeah, that's possibly the one good thing Kennedy had done. He prevented a war. You know, the thing is with Kennedy, he was playing a safe space. I think what he was really doing was waiting for us to be attacked in one way or another before we attacked, you know, them, which is kind of true, because that's what happened with World War II. America didn't enter the war until Pearl Harbor was bombed, and then, you know, we eventually had the two different fights, one in the Pacific and one in Europe. So that's just me touching on it. I am kind of tired, so I don't know all the full details. But going back to this movie, it was just a straight up drama. Really, I saw it was between the three men and how the military defense were dealing with this whole crusade, you know, to pretty much catch the Russians from doing any suspicious shit, you know. It's pretty much all I have to say. I can't wait to do the next two movies. I'm just going blubbering on. But I will talk to you guys later. Peace.